Think you need a perfectly treated room to master your audiobooks? What if it's just a myth? Now, don't get me wrong. Having some decent room treatment and solid studio monitors and/or headphones are going to really help. And it really depends on what stage of being in your booth you're in. And monitors are going to be more used for the mastering process if you have monitors. But in terms of your room, the truth is spending thousands on the perfect environment doesn't guarantee your audiobook will sound any better. Now, I'm not bragging here, but I've worked on over 6,000 audiobooks, and I can tell you this: familiarity with your space is way more important than spending ridiculous amounts of money to make everything sound flat. Because guess what? A flat frequency response doesn't mean it's the best for you. Let me break it down for you. Having an understanding of how your room sounds, its quirks, its imperfections, will actually serve you better in the long run. Your ears will adapt over time. So think about it as an audio memory. You start to recognize what sounds right and what doesn't, even in a less than ideal space. You can get all of the expensive foam panels and fancy bass traps in the world and make your space as dead as possible. But it won't help if you don't invest the time in just listening. Really getting to know how your room handles different vocal frequencies is the key. Does it have an echo in weird places? Does it boost certain frequencies more than others? That's the stuff that you want to learn and what to listen for. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't treat your room at all. Treatment helps manage reflections and definitely improves clarity. But perfection? That's overrated. Especially when you're focusing on audiobook mastering after you're done recording, where the goal is a clean, natural sounding voice, not some flat, lifeless audio. Now, I know you're probably working on headphones, whether you're recording, editing, or mastering your audio. And that's why, even more so, acoustic treatment, new monitors, and the room correction software are not the answer. If your space isn't perfectly treated, there's really no worries. The key here is learning to trust your ears. By constantly working with the same headphones, you'll start to recognize how certain frequencies sound in your head and in your setup. You'll develop an instinct for what needs adjusting, even without a perfectly tuned room. Familiarity with your gear goes a long way, and that's something no amount of room treatment can replace. If you didn't watch my video on ear training, those steps will help you get your ears to learn your equipment, and I'll have that video linked down below. And while we're talking about getting your narration to sound great, there's a tool that I think you'll really love. I've created a free narration EQ guide that will help you nail those go-to frequencies for voice work. Whether you want more depth, presence, or clarity in your audiobook narration, this guide will help you through exactly what to boost or to cut. So if you want this, you can just head over to thehomeaudioproject.com/EQ and grab it. It's totally free, and it will take your mastering to the next level without you needing to worry about having the perfect room. So one of the biggest myths out there is that you can't produce a professionally sounding audiobook unless your room is scientifically treated to death, or in the same vein, it's just as dead as possible. And look, I've worked in rooms that weren't perfectly treated, and I've worked with some setups that most people would say are suboptimal. Even if you take a look at my room, these are panels that I built with EcoCell insulation rather than Owens Corning insulation, which was the standard. But EcoCell is cheaper and it's easier to use and is just as dense without the price tag. And fun fact, Auralex, which is a world-leading retailer in acoustic treatment for professionals and consumer grade, actually announced that they started using EcoCell in their custom-built panels. So I must be doing something right, I don't know. And am I wall-to-wall covered with room treatment? No. I do have insulation in the ceiling above me, but other than that, I do have strategically placed sound panels with flat walls in between them. Now, my space is oddly shaped, so I have the benefit of sound reflections bouncing in random patterns, but the point here is that I've learned my space, I've learned my room. The best result comes when you know your space and understand how it affects your audio. This allows you to compensate for its weaknesses without even thinking about it. So instead of constantly upgrading your equipment or chasing after the perfect room, spend that time getting to know what your voice sounds like in your room with your gear. Once you dial that in, everything gets easier. You'll start to hear things that others might not. And that's your long-term audio memory kicking in. Now, room treatment does help to an extent. It's all about controlling those wild reflections and tightening up the sound. But it doesn't mean you need to achieve that mythical flat response. In fact, that sometimes can actually make things harder because you'll end up chasing an unrealistic standard that won't make much of a difference when mastering audiobooks. Think about your audiobook listener. Do you think they're going to notice? Probably not. Think about it like this. You can achieve the most treated, dead silent room ever built. But if you don't know how to recognize what good audio sounds like in that space, all that treatment is just expensive wallpaper. So here's the bottom line. Don't let anyone tell you, or don't really adapt this line of thinking, that a perfect room or a flat response is a must for mastering audiobooks, or recording for that matter. It's just not true. What really matters is getting to know your room with its quirks and all. And remember, if you're struggling to get that clean, pro-sounding narration that you've always wanted, then grab my free narration EQ guide at thehomeaudioproject.com/EQ. But thanks so much for watching. I really hope that this helped relieve some of that pressure in having the perfect space or the perfect setup. Just remember, master your space, not the other way around. But with that, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in another video real soon.